Hello everybody, today I would like to show how to bake really nice bread, rye bread. It's called Borodinski bread. I use a Russian recipe, and on this table you can see ingredients that will be used for this bread. The most important ingredient is this starter, and you have to make it in advance. There are plenty of videos on YouTube how to make starter, so you kind of have to have this starter working, and you have to have about 200 grams of the starter to start the dough. I also have rye flour here. Also have a little bit of I have to use a little bit of wheat flour. I have some malt. It's called crystal malt here. It's a rye malt, crystal malt. You can see the color. You can buy this from the stores that sell beer supplies. I also use this dark malt. It's called chocolate malt. Just a little bit, like 10 grams for the color. But you don't have to use it. You can just use crystal rye malt. Also use white malt. So some grains, also about 20 grams of it for the bread, because it gives nice flavor, I think. But you again, you don't have to use it. If you don't use these two, you can substitute them with rye flour. Then you have to use this caraway seeds for the flavor of the bread. Another thing is this coriander seeds. It's a coriander seeds that I use as spice. Salt, and I also use this molasses for the bread. But the whole process takes a couple of steps, and in a minute I will show you these steps. In step number 1, you have to prepare starter, and you have to expand it from this starter. And this starter is, as I said, is nice working starter, and I usually use like 3/4 of rye flour and 1/4 of wheat flour when I make starter. When we prepare, first step is a starter, so we have to use as I said, 200. I'll use 210 of grams of this starter, and I have to expand it a little bit. So this is my starter. So I use spoon, mix it, and I use scale to get precisely 210 grams. Here is the scale. Put this thing here. Set it to 0. And then we put 210 grams of it. This is it. This is roughly 210. And then we also have to put some flour. And for the flour, we put another 170 grams of flour. We use rye flour, so this will be about 150, I'd say. Reset it to 0. And yeah, 170 grams. And then we also have to put here 100 grams of water. Water is a little bit warm to make sure that it starts really well. Here's water, 100 with 270. Now I have to mix it really well. So we mix it. really well to make sure that all flour is mixed in, and you can see the consistency. The spoon holds it. So we mix it, and then we set it aside for a couple hours, maybe 3 hours, to make sure that it rises really well. Perhaps 3-4 hours, the temperature of 100 degrees of Fahrenheit. I usually give it like a shape like this, because it's easier than to see if it's risen well. Usually it rises really good if you keep the temperature correctly. Then I cover it with plastic. I use some plastic to cover it, to make sure that it keeps the humidity, so it's humid. For the bacteria it's better growth. Cover it like that, and then I set it aside because I'm ready to do step number 2. Step number 2, we have to prepare mixture, malt mixture that has to go through some enzyme process. So for that we first take some rye flour, and for the classic recipe we have to use 260 grams of flour, but I modified it a little bit. I use not 260 but 230, and I substitute those 30 grams with extra malt, which is white malt, and I also put this, it's called chocolate malt because it's dark, gives some color. So I put first the flour, rye flour, 230 grams. I weigh 230 grams. So you can see it here. $230, and then I have to put some hot water, boiling water actually, boiling water, and I also have to use some of my coriander seeds. Here the coriander seeds. I usually use 4 teaspoons of coriander seeds. 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is about 15 grams. And I always like to add some of the caraway seeds, but I grind them a little bit. So I put them in a coffee grinder, couple of teaspoons of the caraway seeds, and I grind them. A little bit to release the flavor. Put them here too. Now I'm ready to put boiling water in here, and that's very important step. You first have to put flour, and then you put boiling water. Don't put malt yet, because for malt you have to have a little bit lower temperature than boiling temperature. Then enzymes, they work better. So I put 860 milliliters of it. I use my scale. and put 860. That's it. A little bit more, but that's okay. A couple grams, they don't make any difference. Now I have to mix it really good. So I mix it to make sure that the mixture is evenly mixed and I don't have any flour that is not mixed with water. So mix it like this. The smell is really good. I can sense this, can smell this spices, seeds. That's what makes this bread unique, because you use lots of seeds here, and seeds they give nice flavor to the bread when it's baked. So I mix it like this. Now I have to prepare malt. First I have to weigh all the ingredients on the scale. Set it to 0. So I need 84 grams of crystal rye malt. I also, in the past, I also used crystal wheat malt, which also worked, but not as good flavor as rye malt, crystal rye malt. So 84 grams. Put 84 grams of this. Then I put 10 grams of chocolate rye malt. Set it to 0 and put 10 grams. And then I put 20 grams of white malt. Now I have to grind this mixture, and I will use a coffee grinder because I don't have a mill to do. Use coffee grinder. Put a little bit, then grind it. Looks good. Put it here. Now put some more. It doesn't really take long, so I don't have to have a meal to do it. Then another portion of it. So after this is done, I will mix it with my mixture, the flour and hot water mixture. Looks good. Put it in. Make sure that everything goes. Okay. Save all. This is really good stuff because that's what gives this unique dark color to the rye bread, to the Borodinski bread, Russian bread. Here we go. Here's the mixture. We'll mix it with the other quantity. So here's the mixture. Now it's not not boiling anymore, so it cooled down a little bit, and it's perfect for enzymes to start working. This mixture will have to stay in the oven at temperature 150 degrees Fahrenheit for at least an hour and a half. The best is like if it stays there for 3 hours, but at least an hour and a half. So that's an important step, because otherwise it won't be sweet, but the oven makes it sweet and really dark. You'll see it later. Right now it's even hard to mix, but then after the oven it makes it easier to mix, and it's uniform mixture that has very nice smell, and it has a sweet taste in it. So mix it really well. And it's done. It's ready to go in oven, 150 degrees. Set it to at least 1 hour and a half. If you have time, you can do 2 hours or even 3 hours. It won't hurt. More is better, actually. Forgot to mention, don't forget to cover it with the lid. The lid prevents it from drying. You don't want this mixture to dry. Cover it with the lid and put it in the oven for 2.5 hours. So in our case, because we don't have much time, we'll make this specific mixture at an hour and a half of oven. So it will go there for 1 hour and a half, and while it will be in the oven, we'll prepare the second part of the mixture, the final part for the dough. Now we can prepare the dough. And for the dough, we have to use two kinds of flour. We use rye flour, and we also use wheat flour. And I use whole wheat flour because I'd like my bread to be healthy, so I don't use white flour at all. And we use 750 grams of rye flour and 230 grams of whole wheat flour. Again, do the same thing, set it to 0, and then we put 750 grams of the flour. It's about 5 of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is 748, a little bit more, 50. So this is 750 grams of rye flour, and then we use 230 grams of whole wheat flour. This whole wheat flour. And set it to 0. It's very convenient. So we use so 170 and 60 more. A bit too much. Take the excess off. So 230 grams of whole wheat flour, and we also want to use salt. And for salt, I put 20 grams of salt. I use Himalayan salt. Again, because I think it's healthier than normal salt, so it's all organic. All ingredients here are organic, so I want to use 20 grams of it and set it to 0 and put 20 grams. So this is 15. I need 5 more. This is exactly 20. So this is 20 grams. Don't forget to put salt, because without salt it won't taste good. Now for the dough I also have to use some molasses and some water. So I use hot water from my pot, from my kettle, set it to 0, and first I put molasses. And for molasses I put them 60 grams of molasses. This is a little bit too much, 10 grams more, but that's okay. So it's 70 grams in this case, so I'll just use less sugar. And for sugar I wanted to put 70 grams of sugar, but because I put more molasses, I will use less sugar. I will use 60 grams of sugar, and I will use this organic turbinada raw cane sugar. All ingredients are organic. So 60 grams of sugar. So exactly 60. So you can be flexible here. And then I put hot water to dissolve this whole mixture, and I put 210 grams or milliliters of water, 210 milliliters. That's it. Couple milliliters more, but it doesn't hurt. And I have to mix it now. Mix it really well. So mix it. Make sure that all sugars are dissolved. So after we mix it, we just set it aside until the other parts are ready. So remember we have some starter, and we also have the other hot ingredient that has to go through process of through oven 150 degrees. So it's gonna take a while. So we'll take a break until those ingredients are ready, and then we will mix the whole mixture together. But also how you mix it is important. The steps you mix it, and I'll show you this after the break. Now, after about two and a half hours, we have these ingredients that we have to mix together in certain order to get bread. First of all, this see how black it is? This thing that was in oven for 1.5 hours at 150 degrees. Now it's dark, black, and it has very good smell. This is our starter, so you can check the starter, how it looks like. See, it's puffy. That means it's working, it's good, ready to be mixed. And then we have flour, and then we have our molasses with water and sugar. So we just first put molasses in. You can actually do it in a separate container, but what's important at this point is to check the temperature of this mixture, because if it's too high, we can ruin the whole process. It has to be no higher than 100, I would say 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So we put a thermometer in there and check out temperature. So it's a bit high. So 111, 112, 13, 14, it's about 120 degrees maybe, so it's a little bit too high. We have to cool it down. We just use ice, put it on the ice to cool it down for a few minutes and then check the temperature again. Now after a couple of minutes of cooling it on the ice, we check the temperature again. So it doesn't grow that fast. And now it looks like it's perfect. So it's around, I'd say it's around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's ready to be mixed with molasses dissolved in water. We take another container, transfer the mixture in that container. Our dough will be done in this container, in the walls. It's good to use a silicone spatula for that. Should have one. Just use silicone spatula to clean the mixture from the walls, because it's really nice and clean after that. You don't want to lose any of this, because this is what gives flavor and food for all bacteria for the starter that we have. So transfer it all over here. Clean it really well. Now we can put this mixture in there. Molasses, sugar and water. And then we also put the starter in there. So this 3 ingredients, they go first. It's important because we want to provide the best food for the starter first to kind of turn it on, so it accelerates the growth of the bacteria, because the mixture is sweet and warm. As you know, bacteria eats sugar and produces CO2. This is what we need. So we want bacteria to multiply and get even more hungry. And then when we put flour, it will start working really fast. So we mix it really well. Make sure that all starter is mixed with this mixture, with malted molasses mixture. So if there are some pieces, you can mash them. So I used to do the other way, like put it in the flour, but it takes longer, I think. The faster way is doing like this. Also, it's really hard to use this quantity. It's hard to mix it without any machine. I don't use any machine, so it's hard to mix it even for me. So I recommend when you try it first time, don't use the whole quantity, but use half of it. From this whole quantity you get three breads, so it's enough for a week, for a family of 4. We're a family of 3, but we are visitors, so it lasts for about a week. Really tasty bread. So you mix it like this. You can let it stand for a few minutes, take a break if you want, and then you can add the flour in there. Now, after about half an hour, I had to walk my dog and I went for a walk for about half an hour. I came back and ready to put flour in this mixture. And the mixture looks like form little bubbles, which is good, because it means that the bacteria is alive. So I just put the whole thing in here, whole flour, because I think it's easier to mix it this way. And then I start mixing it, just like this. So you can use smaller quantity, like half of it, because it gets really hard to mix this. But when it's proofed for a few hours, then it's easier. But for the first one, it's kind of hard. So I do it like this, and I mix it. It takes a few minutes to do it. It's all possible and doable. Just do like this. Make sure to get it from the walls. Mix it really well. So you don't want to see any flour here, so it should be nice and uniform mixture. Because the bacteria and yeast that is in the starter needs also water to grow, so it won't grow on the dry flour. So you want to mix it, make sure that everything is wet and it's nice and uniform mixture. Just do it like this. Then you can turn it upside down, turn it over again. It takes some effort to do it, for sure, so just be patient. It's a good exercise too, because you train your muscles. And I can tell you that the smell is also good. By the way, when I'm doing it, I want to preheat the oven to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit for proofing. But I will leave this mixture for the night, so I turn off the oven for the night, but it still keeps the temperature for a while when it's proofing. So I turn it on now, then let it stand maybe for about 30 minutes, and then I turn it off without opening the oven, and it stays there for the night. And in the morning I will mix it again and put it in the shapes, in the forms, for bread making forms for the final proofing, which takes also about a couple hours, sometimes more, sometimes less, depends on the temperature. It's better to do it in the oven at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, when I do final proofing in the bread forms, I put some hot water in the oven, like I put a bowl of hot water, boiling water in the oven to generate some humidity, because I want humidity when I do proofing. It grows better. So Mix it more and more and more. Mixing the dough is the most laborious process. So you want to make sure that you mix it until you don't see any dry flour in the mixture. So once it's done, that's it. So it's ready for final, almost ready for final proofing. What you want to do is you want to clean the spatula, and I use the silicone little spatula to remove this dough from my wooden spatula. Then I use water. Use water from the starter. This is good because it has some bacteria. Wet it in water and then kind of put it in one piece. I do it because I don't want it to be dry. I don't want surface to be dry. So I want it all compact together. Nothing is dry. So everything is compact, nice and warm. And also it will help me to see how well it will rise after proofing. So when I started, I usually start making this bread after work around 5:30 p.m. So I do this first step when I make initial ingredients. Then the mixture, the malt mixture, stays in the oven for a couple hours, as well as starter, 2-3 hours, proofing of just the starter, and then around maybe 9 p.m. I start working on the dough, and when I do it, so usually I'm done by around 10 p.m. I put it in the oven. Early in the morning, when I wake up, I mix it one more time and put in bread making forms. And in the morning I will be able to see how good the dough risen. So if it's working or not. So if it doesn't increase to about this level, that means it's not so good, but that's what I expect, like to be about twice bigger, to increase up to this level. But for now I make it really wet. Also want to use plastic to cover it. Make sure it doesn't dry in the oven. So we want to preserve humidity. Clean spatula. Don't want to lose anything. This is bread. So that's it, it's more or less ready. So more water to keep it wet, which is very important. You don't want any dry crust here, because it will prevent it from proper proofing. Okay. Now I will use some plastic to cover it, because you want to keep moisture inside. Take a piece of stretch type plastic food wrap like this. Stretch it. By the way, I don't use metal balls because I think metal can change temperature much faster. So if it's cold, it can drop faster. If it's hot, it can be heated faster, which is not good. We don't want sharp temperature changes. We want it nice and uniform. Take more plastic, cover this little hole, yeah, and that's it. It's ready to stay night. And then in the morning we'll take a look if it really increased in volume. I'm sure it will. I've done it several times, many times actually. I also wanted to show the bread making forms that I use. So I use 3 of these forms. Actually 2 of this is sur le tap, but this one is bit different, but about the same size. So for that quantity, all of these 3 will be filled dough, and we'll get 3 breads from here. So I also use butter to put it on the walls of this forms, because otherwise we risk that the dough can stick to the walls, and then it will be hard to take the bread out. So this is how we will do it in the morning. Now it's 7:30 in the morning, a little bit late, but it's okay. The dough is really looking good. I'll show it to you. So it's ready to be mixed and put in the forms. You can see it's puffy. It's risen about 2 times, almost to this line here. And it's ready to be mixed. It's very important to mix it because we want to work on it to introduce more oxygen to it, so that it could rise in the bread forms. I use wooden spatula. For this step, moisten it in water. And then I work on it like this, so it's much easier now. Than before. Do it like this to make sure that get rid of CO2 and get some oxygen. And just like that. And as you can see, it's nice and uniform. That's what we want it to be, nice and uniform. So it's ready to go in the bread forms that I prepared. For the forms, I use a little bit of butter, like this, just normal butter, or you can use coconut oil. I Don't use anything that has transaturated fat in even if it's a little bit, because I want my bread to be organic. So I use butter, really good on the walls, especially in the corners. So this one looks like it's ready. Need to do it really good. Here's another form. Corners important, walls, everything, just like that. And the last form. So we don't want our bread to stick to the walls. So this is done. Clean my hands. Now we are ready to put it the form. Okay, take this, put it here, use spatula, silicone spatula. Try to put equal quantities of the dough in each of the form. So you can see it's nice and puffy. This means it's good. It's even warm, like I can feel it with my hands. Some more over here. In the past I used scale to determine the equal quantity, but don't do it anymore because the baking time is the same. It doesn't change it, so it bakes about the same. It's just a matter of precision, but you don't have to have that precision. Okay, so roughly the same, maybe here it's a bit more than in other places. Let's clean this. Make sure you don't have it here anymore. This looks like one less than others. Clean spatula. We clean it because we want to moisten it with water so that the dough doesn't stick to it. So now I use water and press it down in the form. So you want to have nice shape. Press this one. So what I already see that it is a little bit too much here. This is too little, so I can put some of it into another one. Okay. Now I work on this. I also need some hot water because I want to put it in the oven. When I put it in the oven, I put a bowl of ceramic bowl of hot water, and it just stays there until I bake the bread. So the water gives moisture in the oven. Even when I bake bread, when it baked at high temperature, the water still stays there because it evaporates and gives that humidity. So now if we compare this to, this is maybe a little bit too much, so we can put this from here to here. Press it more. See, the goal is to put about half of the form. So even if you use small forms, so you have to feel it like half of it should be filled with the dough, because if you do more, then when it rises it will go over the edges. Just like that. So this is good, this is good. Now this one. A bit more. So because I have to go to work, I leave it to my wife to bake it, and she's good at it. She knows what to do. What she normally does when it goes to the top of this form, it's ready to be baked. Usually it takes about 2 hours. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's longer, even 3 or 3.5 hours. Depends on the temperature and on the other conditions, but we want it to go to the top of the form, because almost to the top maybe, because if you don't do it, then the bread will crack on the edges. It will crack and it won't be good. So we want to take time before we bake it. Now it's nice and smooth and uniform. So when I finish doing this, I want to put some coriander seeds or caraway seeds. Coriander is better, tastes better maybe, but you can put coriander. You can even skip that step, but I think it looks better. So let's put this final quantity here. Hot water is ready. As you can see, it looks nice, wet. Now I use the same water that I used yesterday, because this water has bacteria, and bacteria doesn't hurt. It's better to have more bacteria than less bacteria, even on the surface of the bread. That's my personal preference. Now we spread some seeds. It will look better and taste better, and they're good for digestion too, these caraway seeds. So put them on the top, spread them like this, spread over another one, like that, spread them here. After I spread the seeds, I want to press them down in the dough to stay there, because otherwise it won't stay well. So it's nothing left, just the right quantity. So use the same wooden spatula that is wet in my water and just flap it like this to press the seeds down. So then the upper crust. Just like that. Also clean the edges with the paper towel, just in case I want any mess here. So clean it from the dough. I think it can stick to this if I don't clean it, because it will dry out, and then when the dough rises it will hit those edges. Now I put some more butter. To the edges, just in case. To prevent sticking it. Then I use ceramic bowl like this. Fill it with boiling water and place it all in the oven. The oven is preheated to 100 degrees. So we take bread and put it in there. Then we also put a bowl with water. Now we create very nice environment for the bread to rise. So we close it and set timer to roughly 2 hours. Let me start it. So in 2 hours it will be ready to be baked. So after 6 hours of cooling, at least 6 hours of cooling under the towel, we have this nice bread. We already tried the piece. It's really tasty and nice and soft. See, very nice dark color. The bread is very healthy. It has lots of vitamins. Vitamin B, group of vitamins group B. Also has lots of nutrients. Very, I like it the best with butter and smoked salmon. It's sandwich and it makes very nice breakfast because it has lots of nutrients in it. In any case, I'd like you to enjoy this bread, and I hope you'll be able to make the same good tasting bread. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll be happy to help you with this.